All right, welcome to Chapter 8, Section 8. And you're going to have to bear with me because my pen is not working all that well. So if it marks across the page, I'm sorry. I will start over and rewrite. So this is the last section of Chapter 8. We're going to factor polynomials completely. So we're going to take on a little bit of some challenges today when you notice things. We're just going to be looking for patterns and things that we notice in each term that might be common that we could factor out. So for the first example, we're going to factor out a common binomial. And this is just to kind of get you started at looking for those things that they have in common that we could factor out to make things work. So it says factor the expression 2x times the quantity x plus 4 minus 3 times the same quantity x plus 4. So since we have the same quantity x plus 4 in both of our terms, we can factor that part out. We can actually pull that part out. And if we pull out an x plus 4 from both terms, think of it like pulling out an x or something from both terms. And if we pull that out, it would look something like this. We would pull the x, and again, I hope my pen is going to work. So we're going to pull this x plus 4 out front. Okay, and we're going to pull it out front just like we'd pull out a 2x or a 2 or a negative. It's going to come out front, and then a parenthesis is going to be written. And if we take the x plus 4 out of this factor, what's left here? That would be a 2x. Okay, and then if we take the x plus 4 out of this term, what's left here? Don't forget that negative. We're left with a negative 3. See, there goes my pen, acting strange. So 2x minus 3, and close our parentheses. So that's what we factor it out. And that's as far as we can factor it. Since it's not an equation, it is an expression. That's as far as we can go. The x plus 4 doesn't have anything else that we could take out, nothing in common, and the 2x minus 3 has nothing in common. So in that case, we're done. So let's do the next example. We are left with, we start with 3y squared times the quantity y minus 2 plus 5 times the quantity 2 minus y. Well, we don't have anything exactly the same, but we do have these quantities y minus 2 and 2 minus y. So in other words, we have a positive y right here and a negative 2. But on this side, we have a positive 2 and a negative y. So we have something in here that we have just opposites. They are the opposite signs. So we could factor out a negative or a negative 1. It says right here, we could factor out a negative 1 from the quantity 2 minus y. And that would basically just change the signs of what's inside this quantity. In other words, my 2 would become negative and my y would become positive, just like this parentheses here. So we would get that common binomial factor. So here's what it would look like. We would take this, the 3y squared, please forgive my pen, the 3y squared times the quantity, I'm having to go very slow, y minus 2. Okay, and then if we pull a negative 1 out of here, we pull it out front, just to the front of this parentheses, not to the front of the entire thing, because we're just changing this parentheses. And this is where our multiplication is happening. So we're going to pull the negative 1 out here, which takes my positive 5, and now it becomes a negative 5. Okay, and then inside here, I'm going to have a positive y and a negative 2. And I want to kind of point out something. Oh, sorry about my pen. Okay, let's point out something right here. If we distributed this positive 5 into this parentheses, let's look at what we'd have. We'd have a positive 10, and we'd have a negative 5y. Do you see what I'm saying? We would have 5 times 2 is 10, and then 5 times negative y is negative 5y. So now let's double check that we come out with the exact same thing at this point. All we did was pull a negative out, change the signs, but let's see what happens. Negative 5 times y gives us a negative 5y, just like if we had done it up here, and then negative 5 times negative 2 is a positive 10. So we have not changed the value of anything, of any of the multiplication going on right here. This multiplication gives us the same result as this multiplication. So all we've done is just work it to where we have a common factor of y minus 2 and y minus 2. So now we can take that y minus 2 and we can pull that out front. And I'm going to work on my pen and hope that it's good. Pull that out front. Now, since I'm actually taking the y minus 2 from both terms, whereas right here, I was taking a negative from both of these terms inside this parentheses, I was taking the negative here, it only goes out front of this. But since I'm taking something out of this in both terms, both quantities, I'm taking the y minus 2 from this term and the y minus 2 from this term, it has to go in front of both of those terms. I'm hoping that makes sense. That's the difference in the negative coming just here versus the y minus 2 going to everything. But if I take the y minus 2 out of here, that leaves me with 3y squared. Sorry. And then it leaves me with a negative 5. I'm so sorry. I don't know why my pen is doing this. So that would be all we could do, because now we can check our parentheses. Y and negative 2 have nothing in common, nothing else we can factor out. And my 3y squared and negative 5, my 3 and 5 have nothing in common, and they neither one have a y involved. So we are done with factoring. We are factored as far as we can on that one. Go ahead and try the guided practice, okay? And then you pause the video. Please pause the video. Do the 2 guided practices, and then you can check and see the answers. Replay the video after you pause it and check your answers. Okay, in the first one, we pulled out the common factor x minus 2. And when we pulled out the common factor x minus 2, it left us with an x in this term. And then it left us with that understood 1 that's out here out front. There was nothing left but a 1. So if I distributed, I'd have x minus 2 times x, and then x minus 2 times 1, which would take me right back to this, this expression right here. Over on this one, my common factor was y plus 3. So I take it and put it out front. Sorry, this looks very weird, but it's y plus 3 is my term out front. And then my binomial that's left would be the 5y minus 2. All right, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is factor by grouping. We're going to go through these 2 examples, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you your assignment, and I'm going to keep it really easy today. So factor, and I'm going to give you some time to work on your Khan Academies as well. I'm going to give you a really short little practice assignment, and then you can work on your Khan Academies. So factoring by grouping. We're going to look for pairs that have common factors, such as, in this problem, we're going to factor, just start over here. We're going to factor x cubed plus 3x squared plus 5x plus 15. Well, I'm going to notice, first of all, that none of the coefficients have anything in common, okay? Like I have a 1 here, a 3, a 5, and a 15. So there's nothing I can factor out of all 4. And I notice that 3 of the 4 terms have an x, but this 4th term does not. So I'm going to maybe look for pairs that I can put together and factor something out, and maybe make it look like something we had up above. So what I'm looking for is things like the x cubed and the x squared. They both share a common factor of x squared. Over here, these both share a common factor of 5. 5 and 15 share a common factor. Okay. There's another way I could group. I could put the 5x with the x cubed, and I could factor out 1x in front of those. But I could also put the 3x squared with the 15 and factor a 3 out of from the 3 and the 15. I mean, there's kinds of ways, different ways you can group things together. But I'm going to go ahead and keep it easy. I'm going to look at this like a quantity, and sorry. Okay, and this like a quantity. Okay. And I'm going to group them together in this way. And then I'm going to factor out whatever they have in common, the greatest common factor from each group. So for example, my first group here, my greatest common factor is x squared. So I'm going to factor out an x squared. I'm going to put it out front. Okay, and I'm going to look at what's left inside here. If I take an x squared away from x cubed, that leaves me with just an x. And then if I take the x squared away from 3x squared, it leaves me with just a positive 3. And then I'm going to put the, I'm going to look away here, and I'm not factoring out anything that's negative. I would caution you to not just automatically bring that plus sign down. Bring something down. Don't make it all multiplication. Don't turn this problem into an entire multiplication problem. So make sure you bring something down, a plus or a minus. And so since I'm just going to factor out a positive 5 out of both of these, because that's what the greatest common factor is, I'm going to go ahead and put a positive 5, if I can get my pen to work, out front, and then put what I'm left with an inside. So I pull the 5 out of this, or divide this by 5. I'm left with just an x. And then 15 divided by 5, or if I factor out a 5 from 15, I'm left with a positive 3. That is a plus 3. Okay. So now looking at this, this looks similar to what we did up above in our examples. We have a common factor of x plus 3 and x plus 3 that I can factor out. So that's my next step, or my last step, is I'm going to pull that x plus 3 out front here. And it's going to leave me with x squared plus 5. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm giving you guys something to laugh about, and then you can wish I was really here. Okay, x squared plus 5 parentheses. Okay, here we go. That was difficult. Okay, here's our next example, factor by grouping. We have an x cubed minus 6 plus 2x plus 3x squared. So it says, again, look for pairs that have common factors, and what pairs have common factors. Well, I just naturally put these together because they each had something in common. But the x cubed and the 6, they have not, or the negative 6, the x cubed and the negative 6, they have nothing in common. And the 2x and the negative 3x squared, they have an x in common, but it might be better off if I maybe move my negative 3x squared and I put this maybe in order. So let's put this in order by our powers. So we're going to have x cubed. Of course, it would ask me to do a lot more work here with my pen. And then 3x squared. I'm going to go slow so I can maybe do this. 3x squared. Notice the negative went with it. And then I'm going to do a positive 2x. And then my negative 6. Okay, and then I'm going to change colors again. And I'm going to now group them like this. Okay. And now I'm going to look at my common factors. These two have only an x squared, so we're going to factor out the GCF from each group. So I'm going to factor out an x squared. Okay, and that leaves me inside there with, make this look really Christmassy, that leaves me with an x, and then that leaves me with a negative 3. Okay. And then my next factor, what am I going to take out of the next set of parentheses? I'm going to take out a, well, maybe if I can change colors. It's not being very cooperative. The 2x and negative 6 have a greatest common factor of 2. I've noticed that I have an x minus 3. I'm going to end up with an x minus 3 here. So I don't need to pull out a negative. So I'm just going to leave this positive 2 plus. I'm so sorry. It's frustrating trying to do it as it probably is trying to watch it. Just saying. And then what's left inside these parentheses would be an x. And then minus 3. Parentheses. So again, you notice we have a common factor of x minus 3. And you guys can figure out what we're going to do from there. Very similar to what we did at the very first problem. We're going to factor out that x minus 3. And it's going to leave us in the second parentheses with what's left here, the x squared plus 2. Okay. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and stop the video there, and I'm going to give you, I'm gonna let you get your assignment first, and then you can work some Khan Academies. But for your assignment, okay, so your assignment is gonna be on page 552. Go ahead and try 3 through 21 odd. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's not any, we're just going to start with that. And then when you finish that assignment, then you can work on your Khan Academies. But do that first. Just make sure you get a good understanding of factoring completely. And we'll continue practicing this tomorrow when I return. So bring any questions you have. Thanks for watching the video. Sorry it was so long and kind of painful through some of that writing. And I hope you guys had a great day.